Hi, this is Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we're making this super fast, fabulous, mile-a-minute chair back cover with border berries. This blanket is so cute. It could actually be made into a full-size blanket or across a bed, as a bed runner at the bottom of a bed, table runner down the center of a table if you just want to do some stripes. It's also a great project for using yarn that you have. You could do it as a stash buster, or if you have yarn that you're just not sure what to do with, you could just make a strip in each different yarn to see how it works up, which is what I did for this one. Now there's links for all of these yarns in the description box below. Just click on that little arrow underneath the video and a whole window will pop down and links to go and get these yarns. So starting over here, this is Mini Ladder Glitz, Pastel Cotton, Eyelash 50-gram balls, Color Twist, Rockstar, 2 words, Verona Shine, Loose Lana. This one is out of stock. It was on clearance, but I loved it, so I had to throw it in there. This is Pastel Cotton in a different shade, and this is Verona Shine in a different shade. So these two are Verona Shine, and these two are Pastel Cotton. To join, I'm just using Saver 100. This is a 4-weight. The rest of these yarns are a 3-weight, minus this eyelash, which I think they call a 5-weight, a chunky, but just ignore that. We can always use it. And I'm just joining with just regular acrylic. So I'm using this Saver 100. It is a 4-weight, and if any of your yarn is thicker, it's best to use it for the join. It'll just help stretch out your little chiclets so everything lays nice and flat. So you'll also need the hook that goes along with your yarn. I'm using a 6mm hook, and you'll need a pair of scissors and a darning needle. I'll start with this Verona Shine. So you're going to start by making a slip knot. So I hold the yarn over my non-dominant hand and hold it down on my ring finger with my thumb. Wrap it around my top 2 fingers, kind of making a bit of an X, and then flipping my fingers over and just poking it underneath that space between my fingers, pulling it and letting it go. You want to leave a bit of a tail, enough for us to weave in or sew in with a needle later. Shrink that down and put it on your hook. Now you're going to chain 7. So just grab your yarn, turn your hook, so it's hook facing down, and slide it through the loop on your hook. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's our 7 chains. To count your chains, we don't count the knot and we don't count what's on your hook. We just count these V's in between. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We want to go into the 4th chain, so just the middle chain, so the 4th chain down or the 4th chain up, and we're just going to push our hook in. So wrap your yarn and go into that 4th chain. I put 2 loops on my hook. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that is our first double crochet. We want to do 2 more of those into the same stitch. So wrap your yarn into the same spot, grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So our chain counts as a double crochet in this pattern, so that counts as 3 double crochets. We want to do 1 more. We're going to start with 4. So this is our 3rd one, counts as our 4th. So our chain is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 2, 1, and 2. And now into the very same spot, we're going to do 3 more double crochets. So wrap your yarn and 3 more double crochets into the same spot. our 3 double crochets. You can just wiggle your fingers in between them to count that there's 3. And now we're going to slip stitch to the first chain we made. So there's a tiny little one down here that it's all shrunken up. It's hard to see. It just looks like we have 2 chains left, 1 and 2. But we're just going to go into the first chain. So right underneath that knot, there's the knot. We're going to go right underneath it. It doesn't matter if you go underneath 1 loop or 2 loops. Just push your hook in, grab your yarn, and bring it through. So that's a slip stitch. So drop your tail, just ignore it, and chain 2. 1 and 2. We're going to be working into the very same spot again, the very center, that center hole. So wrap your yarn and 3 double crochets into the center space. 1, 2, and 3. If I'm going too fast, just pause the video and catch up. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Wrap your yarn and go into the same spot, the center, and 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So we're almost making a little square. Now we're going to wrap our yarn and we're going to do a double crochet into the top of the chain 3. So our first chain is way down here at the bottom. 1, there's 2, and here's 3. So we're just going to go in to the top of the chain 3, or if you can see your first real double crochet, it ends up in this stitch right there. We're going to go in beside it, just over here. So the top of the chain 3, wrap your yarn and in to the top of the chain 3. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that is a double crochet to join. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and turn your work. So we're going to end every single row like that, and in the center we're going to do the same thing, which is 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same space. So that's what we're going to be doing every row. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And we're going to end our row in the same way with a double crochet. We're going to put it into the top of our last stitch in the row below. So there's 1, 2, 3 double crochets. We're just going to go into the top of the last double crochet. If they're hard to see, you can also pull your stitches apart. Just kind of give that shell a little tug, and then you can kind of see a little spot will open up, a little eye. So there's 1, 2, and 3. We want to go right into this third one over there. So wrap your yarn and go into that last stitch, making 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2. So that builds our wall, or that builds the edge of our strip. Now we're going to turn our work and build our point, or our corner, or our set of shells. So into the center space right here, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. To finish off our row, double crochet into the top of that last stitch. So on top of the chain, that first stitch, 2 loops on your hook, and 1 double crochet. Chain 2, so there's our wall. Now we're going to turn our work and build our shell, and then wall, shell, wall, shell, wall, shell, wall, all the way up along our work. So now keep going, building shells and walls all the way until your strip is as long as you want it to be. So there's my 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all into the tip of that strip or stripe that we're building, and double crochet to start our wall into the last stitch, double crochet, and chain 2. So there's our wall. Turn your work, shell, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, wall, double crochet into the last stitch, chain 2 and turn. So keep going until your strip is as long as you want it to be. So to count your strip to see how long it is, you just want to count the chiclets along one side, or these little shells that we have. So and I don't count what's at the bottom facing down, I just count the ones going up. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's as long as I want mine to make. I want mine to be 10 actually. So for the next round, I'm going to finish off and I'll show you how we do that. So I've done my double crochet, chain 2 like we always do. So there's the wall, turn, and now because we did what's equivalent to 4 double crochets on the starting side where we started, I'm going to end with 4 double crochets at the top. So 4 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 2. Now grab your space and grab your stitches and just slide your stitches back. That'll give you some more space at the top to work into. Wrap your yarn and 4 more double crochets into the same space. 2, 3, and 4. Double crochet into the last stitch to do your wall. And now because we're not going up anymore, we're just going to chain 1 to secure our yarn. Cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Now you're welcome to work your tail in and along the side a little bit, probably over 3 spaces if you'd like to, or you can just leave it and sew it in with a needle later. That's up to you. So now get the rest of your strips done. Make sure they're all the same length so that they'll match when we're joining up. So to know how long you want your strips to be, just lay it over the back of the chair or sofa that you're making the cover for. And you want it about 3 inches above the seat cushion and going up and across the back and hanging down about 12 inches on the back side. For mine, I did 60 chiclets. When your strips are ready, grab one of your strips and get your ball of yarn ready to go for joining. We're going to be joining into the tip of one of our stripes or strips. So just put your hook straight into that space at the top of your strip. So loop of yarn on your hook about 5 inches. Pull your hook through and slip stitch with both strands of yarn to join. There we go. Drop your tail. Just hold it along your work. We can work over it a little bit here. And chain 2. 1 and 2. Now because I joined with a slip stitch, it looks like a chain 1 and acts like a chain 1. So if you're joining your yarn in a different way, you're going to want to do a chain 3. This is going to count as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and 2 more double crochets into that same space. 1, 2. Now we have our 4 stitches here, our 4 double crochets. So we're going to be making 1 double crochet into each stitch. So we're just going to be going underneath the V, picking up both strands of that V and making a double crochet. We need to do 4 of those. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1 into each stitch. So wrap your yarn into the first one, 2 loops of that stitch on your hook, double crochet. So there's our first one, our second one, third, and our fourth. And where you did your chain, or if you have an irregular one where you did your chain, just do your best, just get a double crochet into that stitch. So there's our 4 double crochets. Wrap your yarn, and now we're going to be going into each of these spaces going down along the side. We're not working into where our chiclets meet, not where they join the wall, just into the spaces between them. So 3 double crochets into each space going along the side of your strip. Keep going like this all the way down till you have 3 double crochets in between each of these chiclets going all the way down your stripe, and I'll meet you when we get to the end. You might feel that your strip is kind of starting to curve, like it's stretched out on one side and wrinkled on the other, don't worry about it. It'll totally even out when we get the stitches put in on the other side. So that is normal, don't worry about it. Make sure that you get into this space after the last chiclet and before the 4 double crochets. So make sure you get into that space. Sometimes that one's easy to skip over. There's our 3, and now we can work over it. Whenever you get to one of your tails, you're welcome to work over it partially or halfway. And now we're going to do our 4 double crochets into each stitch. So you can just kind of like line up your stitch and see where they are at the top. There's 1, 2, 3, and here is 4. So 1 double crochet into each of the 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. On this side, I'm not putting any border berries. This is just going to be nice and flat. It's going to be right where I rest my back against my chair. So I'm just going to put a regular corner of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. 2 and 3, chain 2. Now you can always grab your chain and your stitches and slide them apart to give yourself some more space. And 3 more double crochets right into the tip of this point. It'll give a little bit of a point on the outside of our blanket or on the edge, like that. And now 4 double crochets into each of the next 4 stitches. 1 into each. 2, 3, and 4. So this is as far as you're going to get on all of your strips that you're joining, but for your first strip, we're going to finish it off completely. So on your other strips, you're going to stop right here and start joining. For this one, we're going to keep going right to the end. So 3 double crochets into each space, and I'll meet you when you get to the join. Remember, we have to get into this last space, so always look for that. We need to put 3 double crochets in right before the end of our stripe, the 4 double crochets. So there's our last set of 3, and now our 4 double crochets into the stitch. This is my chain right here, so that looks different for me, but I'm just going to go into that hole, that space right there, and then the second stitch I'm going to pick up this front loop and the back loop and turn that into a stitch, and then there's 3 and 4 that look normal. So just make sure you do your 4 double crochets into the stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now grab your chain space in the middle again and your stitches, slide your stitches back the other way to get yourself some space, and 3 double crochets into that space. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to finish off with a chain 2. So 1 and 2, and slip stitch to the top of the chain 3 to join. So again, we're going to count where we joined our yarn as our first chain. So 1, 2, and 3. We're just going to go into the top of that chain 3 and 2 loops of that stitch on our hook and slip stitch to join. So push your hook in, grab your yarn and bring it back, turn your hook to bring your hook through. So there's your slip stitch, and we're going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 8, and there's our chain. Now I'm just going to bring it down like this. I don't want to turn. I don't want it to be twisted. So my yarn is behind. I'm pulling my hook down like this. And we're going to slip stitch right to the top of that first double crochet. You see that double crochet? We're going to slip stitch right into it without twisting our chain. So I'm just going to grab my yarn and bring it through and through. So there's our slip stitch. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Touch your yarn, leaving enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down. So there's our first spot where we're going to put our border berry. You can of course make your chain longer or shorter depending on where you want your border berries. You can even skip the chain altogether and put your border berry straight into the tip of your the chain 2 spot where we joined. Totally up to you, but this is how I did mine with a chain 8 slip stitch to join. So this strip, I just lay it across the top of my work, my border berry spot on the far side, and we're going to get the next strip ready. So get your next strip started with your joining yarn. We're going to do one side, so we're going to join our yarn and work all the way around, finishing the one end, the one corner, and I'll meet you after our 4 double crochets into the stitch. So get your 2 strips lined up, the points without a border berry on the same end, and where you're started and finished on the other end. So starting and finishing lined up, and plain bit lined up. So there's my 4 double crochets. And now I'm going to find on the strip I've already finished, I'm going to find the space between my 4 double crochets and before my 3. So there's a spot right there. That is where we're going to slip stitch to. So in between the shells or the sets of 3. So before the first set, after the 4, and before the 3. Make a little space. Get your hook right inside there. So put your hook down, grab your yarn and bring it up. Now I've let go of this strip. I'm not holding it. Just worry about doing your slip stitch. Oh, there's your slip stitch to join. Not touching this piece again, just let it hang there, just ignore it if you can. And into this space right after the 4 double crochets, we're going to do our 3 double crochets into the first space. So 1, 2, and 3. Like that. Now lay everything down flat again and find the spot after the next 3, right where the chiclet joins the wall. We're going to push our hook down into that space, grab our yarn and bring it back, and slip stitch to join. Wrap your yarn, 3 double crochets into the next space. So I'm just letting that strip that I finished, it's hanging there. It feels a bit awkward, but you'll get used to it. You just ignore it as best you can. Lay everything back down flat. Find the next space after the 3 double crochets. Right into the space, hook down, bring your yarn back up and through, and slip stitch with both to join. Wrap your yarn, 3 double crochets into the next space. Find the next space above where your chiclet joins and in between your 3 double crochets. Hook down, grab your yarn and bring it back, slip stitch to join, and 3 double crochets into the next space. So you're going to be doing 3 double crochets with a slip stitch to join all the way along the edge of your strip. In between the 3 double crochets, hook down and slip stitch. So just keep going doing this all the way till you get to the end of your strip or the end of your row. When you get close to the end of the row, you can kind of feel like it's not going to line up. Like you'll feel like one is really, really short and one's really long and you might have messed up. But don't worry about it yet. Just keep going because it's, again, we have to find this last shell here before our 4 double crochets at the very end. So don't forget you need to go into there. So 3 double crochets, our last shell. Lay everything flat, and I always keep the finished strip above me. So I just in my head I know where I need to be looking for. And now we have to find that last spot after our set of 3 and before the 4. So it's right here. So you'll have to kind of wiggle your fingers around or wiggle your hook to make sure you find the right spot before the 4 double crochets and after your last set of 3. So we have to make a little space and go right in between there into the space for our last slip stitch. There is our slip stitch. And now ignore our finished strip again, just pretend it's not there, and finish off this strip that we're working on. So we need to do 4 double crochets into our stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's our 4 double crochets, and that's what our join looks like right now. And now we're going to finish our point up here at the top. So grab your chain and pull those stitches back so you get some more space to work in. And 3 double crochets. I'll work over that tail while I'm there. So 3 double crochets. Chain 2. Slip stitch to the top of the chain 3 to join. So just slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. Turn your hook for your slip stitch. Chain 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. I pinch it now so it doesn't twist. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my 8. I get everything laying down flat. Bring my yarn to the side and my hook down, and I want to just slip stitch to that very first double crochet on the other side of the join. So I'm just going to put my hook straight in 2 loops of that stitch on my hook, and grab my yarn and slip stitch to join, just like that. Chain 1, and now my chain is there and it's not twisted, it's nice and cute. Not that anyone's going to notice, that's just me being fussy. We chained 1 to secure our yarn. Now cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down. So now we have 2 spots ready for our border berries, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So our tails, I just work it down my chain just through 1 loop. I just want it to get it to the very tip. There, just somewhere down there. You are of course welcome to sew in your tail any which way you want. I use the same color yarn as my strip for my border berry. You're welcome to use any color you want, or a different color for all of your border berries, whatever you'd like to do. So just put your hook straight into that chain 8 space, loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both to join. Now drop your tail and chain 2, 1 and 2. We're going to be doing our border berry right into the slip stitch we made. So just into the center of that V. We're just going to put our hook straight in there, and that's where we're going to build our border berry. So wrap your yarn and put your hook straight in. You want to go in through both sides. So you want to go in the front and in the back. Grab your yarn and bring it through. Wrap your yarn and take off 2 and leave that on your hook. We want to do that 5 more times. So wrap your yarn and go into the same spot, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So every time we're getting 1 more loop on our hook, and we're just going to leave it there. So there's 2, here is 3, 4, and 5. Like that. If your yarn is thinner, you can keep going. You can do 7. And I think that's pretty good for me. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. I will do 1 more. It's very full now. So there is 6 for me, and I have 7 loops on my hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to wrap my yarn and take off all 7 loops. So I'm going to finish all those double crochets together. Just turn your hook so it's facing down and pull it through. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. So there's the first part of our border berry. So now we're going to do the same thing right into this stitch right there. So we're going to have one side is here and we're going to make another side going up. So we're going to start 7 double crochets into the same spot. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, can I do 7? 7. So the more you do, the fatter your border berry will be. Wrap your yarn, take off all those loops together and chain 1 to secure. So now it looks like this. We're just going to fold it together like that, and there is going to be our border berry. Slip stitch into the same spot on the top where we joined before. So we're going to slip stitch straight into there. Hook in, grab your yarn and bring it back, turning your hook to bring it through like that. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down. So there is our border berry. Now we're just going to sew up the sides and stuff it a little bit so it stays nice and full. So just grab a darning needle and take one of your tails. Just thread your needle. And we want to sew the side together. So one side of our border berry to the other. So my yarn is way over on this side. I'm just going to whip stitch this side together. So one loop of one stitch to the loop on the other stitch, just so it is closed, just like that. All the way up. Oops, that's one side, is it? Don't know. All the way up like that. Oops. There we go. So that one side is now shut. So we'll turn it over. We want to get to the other side that's opened. If you can kind of just separate it, you'll see there's like a little cup here, a little dish. So this is where we want to take our tail. This is like a little bit of stuffing. So this is how I do it. You can do it any which way, but that's how I do it. I take the tail and I kind of poke it inside because I want my border berry to be a bit stuffed, a bit full. So I put my tail from my chain 8 into the center, and I'm also going to grab this tail that I just stitched. I want that one inside as well. Like that. Poke him inside. Like that, and get your ends kind of pulled so your last 2 stitches are ready. And then you have one more tail. We're going to sew this one shut on that side. So thread your needle and one strand from one stitch to one strand of the other side. Just kind of want to have them pinched together. And then just back and forth through your border berry. It'll just kind of hold everything together. You don't want to pinch so it changes its shape, but you can totally secure it with this tail, just so all that yarn in the center kind of gets a bit tangled up and stays in place. You don't want anything wiggling out between your double crochets. And then as soon as your yarn falls off your needle, I say you're finished. So cut your yarn, and there is your border berry. And if you pinch it, it has some body because we stuffed it full of yarn. It's also a bit heavier. And there it is, so cute. So now keep going, putting your border berries on all of your spots, sewing in your tails of your blanket, and you are finished. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Such a fun blanket. It really perks up an old piece of furniture. It just looks so fun and so great. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I upload a new video almost every weekday with podcast on Wednesday, live chat on Friday, and lots of yarny goodness in between. Love to have you join us, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay hooked.